We're on your side right now, mourning the loss of Clementa Pinckney, the Charleston preacher and South Carolina state senator who was murdered in his own church.
Sky 3 was the only news helicopter from our area to be over his funeral procession in Columbia. Hundreds from South Carolina came out to pay their respects to a beloved pastor. WBTV's Steve Crump is live for us there. And Steve, a really tough day for so many.
Absolutely, Maureen, and you stand on the grounds of the Capitol here, you hear the conversations, you learn a lot about this man. People who loved him just simply called him Clem. In terms of being destined for politics, he started out as a page right here at the State House. Let me show you what's happening right now as we zoom in a little bit. The line's still long here, quite an outpouring of affection and respect for this man. At last count, it was roughly 2,200 people that have filed through the state capitol here. As the funeral procession edged closer to the South Carolina Capitol, it was easy to see that the grounds of the State House offered a memorable backdrop for a marriage between church and state.
Why is it always that it takes a tragedy to bring us together?
Pointed questions coming through the challenges of high humidity and the stifling sun. But the extreme heat wasn't enough to deter the patience of Charlotte area pastors wanting to pay their respects to a fellow man of the cloth. Across the street from these lines at St. Luke's Episcopal, the afternoon was dedicated to silent prayer.
We all God's children, and we all people, and we all have rights to be able to share and do those things that are important for us to do.
While he was a minister at Mother Emanuel AME in Charleston, Clementa Pinckney served in the South Carolina House and Senate. But on this day, his life and legacy drew admiration from two former governors, Republican David Beasley and Democrat Jim Hodges.
This was a community tragedy, and this is a chance for us all to be unified as South Carolinians, and I'm incredibly proud of the people of the state.
Former Governor Beasley simply called him Clem.
And he was elected in the House when I was governor, and he served in the House and the Senate when Governor Hodges was governor. We both know him well, and he was just a remarkable South Carolinian.
You talk about the outpouring of respect for him. That is quite a long line. It was supposed to cut off at 5 o'clock, but apparently it will be going on for some time here. And all new and coming your way tonight at 6, people still here in Columbia, South Carolina, weighing in on the Confederate flag. We'll have that part of the story when you join us then. For now, we're live in Columbia. Steve Crump, WBTV, on your side.
It is church night, and each week at this time, many of you are headed on to your place of worship.
But this Wednesday, your mind may be on Charleston and what happened a week ago tonight at Mother Emanuel AME. A gunman believed to have racist motives killed 9 people during a Bible study. That Bible study is going on again right now despite the murders. The lesson tonight, the power of love.
And in Columbia, people are paying their respects to the church pastor and state senator, Clementa Pinckney. That's where WBTV's Steve Crump joins us live tonight. Steve.
You know, Paul, there has never been a day like this in the history of South Carolina. And when we checked in the Capitol just a few moments ago, that crowd topped more than 3,000, all to show up for a man who was loved, respected, and called to serve. Waiting meant taking on the oppressive conditions of Columbia's summer heat for hours. Mourners absorbed the moment of the horse-drawn caisson as it arrived on the State House grounds. While they came to pay tribute to South Carolina Senator Clementa Pinckney, some in this crowd talked about prayers and forgiveness for accused murderer Dylan Roof.
Well, I would agree. Forgiveness is a gift, and it's a power that we all have, but we seldom exercise it.
Being here also eased the burden, but many in the lines like Al Steele of Fort Mill, South Carolina, were totally engaged in the act of soul searching.
It's been very difficult, very difficult. My family settled in the Panhandle of Lancaster County in 1790, and last week I was ashamed to be a white man in this state.
Why?
Because I just feel bad about the message that's been sent all this time.
Despite this impressive turnout, it could be said there was an elephant in the room. Translation, Confederate battle flag on the grounds.
So I think it should be taken down. It should have been taken down.
Protests regarding the flag on this day were not very vocal. Perhaps it was out of respect. But Congressman Jim Clyburn applauds the efforts of retail outlets for pulling the Confederate battle flag from their store shelves.
Walmart, Sears, eBay, Amazon, breaking their silence. That is what's going to be required.
Well, his funeral will happen this coming Friday in Charleston. Among those in attendance, Congressman John Boehner, Vice President Biden, and President Barack Obama. For now, we're live in Columbia, South Carolina. Steve Crump, WBTV, on your side.
Steve, thank you. All new tonight, hundreds gathered at the Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston this evening to pay their respects to Cynthia Hurd. She's the sister of former North Carolina State Senator Malcolm Graham. She was one of 9 gunned down during a Bible study last week. Earlier today, President Obama paid tribute to the church's pastor, who was also murdered. All new at 11 o'clock, WBTV Steve Crump. Live in Charleston tonight, Steve. I know you were there for this emotional funeral and the president's stirring eulogy.
Yeah, Paul, let me show you what's happening right now outside of the church along Calhoun Street. One of the hearses just left here moments ago, and it was an emotionally stirring message. People started lining the streets here before the crack of dawn. Patience, one of the virtues to have during the day, and at the end of this day, they say the wait was well worth it. A different kind of day dawned in Charleston, and by first light, long lines on several city streets from those in search of a presidential message. No hail to the chief, but rather the raised voices of gospel choirs laid the foundation for a far-reaching speech, both social and spiritual in nature.
That the sweet hour of prayer actually lasts the whole week long.
Mr. Obama praised Clementa Pinckney's life of public service that extended from politics at the State House in Columbia to the pulpit in Charleston.
Slain in his sanctuary with 8 wonderful members of his flock.
The president also named each lost member of the flock who died at Mother Emanuel, but said the alleged shooter, Dylan Ruth, had no idea that unity would come from his plan to start a race war.
God has different ideas. He didn't know he was being used by God.
On this day, the president shared his ideas, suggesting that the nation further examine itself on the issue of race, removing the Confederate battle flag from the grounds of the South Carolina Capitol, and taking on the issue of gun violence. Funerals in African-American places of worship are oftentimes called homegoing services, and ministers returning to their locales leave Charleston with a message of hope.
There was just an awesome energy in the place, with whites and blacks. There was just totally unity.
Once again, we're live from Calhoun Street in downtown Charleston, South Carolina. You may see some flashing lights behind me. The family of Cynthia Hurd leaving the church. Her service is scheduled for tomorrow morning. And one other thing we need to point out among the speakers is Congressman Jim Clyburn. He and Malcolm Graham are friends over the years. Congressman Clyburn has come to Charlotte to participate in some of Graham's fundraising events. We'll be here live tomorrow. And for now, we're live in Charleston. Steve Crump, WBTV on your side.
All right, Steve.
Well, today, hundreds gathered at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, many of them from Charlotte, to say their final goodbyes to Cynthia Hurd. She was the sister of former North Carolina State Senator Malcolm Graham, and Hurd was one of 9 gunned down during a Bible study 10 days ago. WBTV's Steve Crump continues our coverage now from Charleston.
Everyone who lines up or leaves something behind at this now well-known place of prayer enters with a very heavy heart.
Hoping for healing. The country needs it. Charleston needs it. Humanity needs it.
Reverend Larry Hill of Charlotte knows the disruption that violence can bring to a house of worship.
And in this case, it was so distressful. We just are trying to be supportive of the good people of Charleston, just like people were supportive of us.
The us is his old congregation. Back in 1995, Hill pastored Matthews Merklin Presbyterian in South Charlotte. It was burned to the ground by a teenage arsonist.
We are hoping that because of this, some good is going to come out of it.
On the day that's being billed as a celebration of her life, every public library in the city of Charleston is closed to honor the memory of Cynthia Hurd. The branch that she managed on the city's west side will soon be renamed as a way of paying tribute to the slain librarian. Mourners traveled many miles to be near their loved ones. Mitzi Higgins is also here from Charlotte. She knew Cynthia Hurd, who is the sister of former North Carolina State Senator Malcolm Graham.
And I actually worked with Cynthia at one time, but it's definitely an absolute loss for all of us that are involved.
Lessons unfolding here will find their place in a classroom near Charlotte. Pierre Russell oversees the Navy Junior ROTC program at Union County's Sun Valley High School.
Treat everyone with respect. Treat everyone as you want to be treated. Honor, courage, and commitment, which is our Navy motto as well.
More than a week after the loss of life in the South Carolina locale known as the Holy City, answers continue to come by working through sorrow and discovering newfound strength. In Charleston, Steve Crump, WBTV, on your side.
Now to a remembrance for one of the victims in that Charleston shooting, the incident that sparked the Confederate flag debate. Hundreds gathered at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston yesterday, many of them from Charlotte, to say their final goodbyes to Cynthia Hurd. She was the sister of former North Carolina State Senator Malcolm Graham. Hurd was one of the 9 gunned down during that Bible study. WBTV's Steve Crump continues our coverage from Charleston.
Daily rituals of remembering lost lives were again carried out at the church on Calhoun Street. Adding to that ritual now means having bags checked before sitting in a pew.
Joy will come in
The 11 a.m. service at Mother Emanuel became personal for those making the journey from North Carolina's largest city.
It's personal because we know Malcolm. Malcolm has served our community on the local level and on state level. It's his sister and someone he deeply cared about.
Support came to former North Carolina State Senator Malcolm Graham following the loss of Cynthia Hurd, one of the 9 who was shot inside of this church while attending Bible study.
Father, in their death, God, they've been able to reach more people than individually. So, God, we want to tell you thank you.
Hurd, a well-known librarian, was remembered outside of the service and just a block away at the city's main library, which was closed in her honor. Her legacy is one that is special to South Carolina Congressman Jim Clyburn.
This is her church. I'm an AME. My wife was a librarian, and she was my daughter's best friend.
The distance between Charleston and Charlotte is more than 170 miles. Despite the travel time between the two cities and states, friendships do go the distance, as well as the impact of members here who are turning the other cheek against crime and violence.
They've come together and they've said, we believe in the Lord and we forgive. It's been an example to all of us. Malcolm Graham and I are good friends, and I wanted to be here today to support him.
The violence that happened in this place of worship more than a week ago remains deeply etched in the psyche of so many. Making sense of it all is still a challenge for the curious, as well as those coping with the fragile emotions of grief and loss. For now, we're in Charleston. Steve Crump, WBTV, on your side.